Hi, welcome back to AWS on Air. And what we have now is AWS What Next? And we're going to talk some message brokers. So my name is Derek Bingham. I am a senior developer developer advocate at AWS. Sorry for the delay, but we're finally on air. And I'm joined, the pleasure to join me today. I've got Rick and Mithun. Rick and Mithun, would you like to introduce yourselves and tell people watching what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. So I'm a senior product manager with Amazon MQ, and most of my focus lately has been launching our new RabbitMQ broker engine.
Cool. And Mithun?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mithun Malik, and I'm a senior messaging specialist solutions architect. So I cover our messaging services, which includes MQ as well as SQS and SNS.
Awesome, awesome. So, in the spirit of reInvent this year, we're broadcasting from different sides of the planet. It is 8 a.m. for me here in Australia. What time is it over there for you, Rick?
4 p.m. for me here in Vancouver, and
Yeah. And
Mithun
Mithun?
even.
Yeah, same. We are in the same time zone. So yeah, 4 p.m. here too.
Okay. Well, there we are. We're truly global. So apologies if I'm a bit slow, specifically about my own job title. But yeah. So
A couple
I
more
hope
coffees.
everybody watching with what I know. I hope everybody's having fun at reInvent so far. But I'd like to get. I'm going to ask Rick and Mithun their highlights of reInvent so far, and while they're thinking about that, I'll give you mine. If you've been watching the breakout sessions, you'll see that everybody has the exact same background. I call it the magical gray background. And so I've seen really great sessions by two different speakers with the identical background. So you think you're in the same room, but actually one might be in Singapore, where the other one might be in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, where I'm from, which is well, mind blowing for me because it was very cool that those two speakers from different sides of the planet could be in the same talk. So that's been my highlight of reInvent so far. What about you, Rick?
Really, just the joy of being able to do it from home. I mean, it's tough not to be able to sit down and go for dinner with customers, but it's really nice to do the reinvent thing and sit down for dinner with the family. So, that
Yeah.
and just keynote and everything's been really fun to watch. So just different, but still exciting and a lot of fun. How about you, Mithin?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with what you said, Rick. But in addition to it, I think in terms of a specific session, I think the keynote yesterday from Swami on the machine learning stuff was really interesting. I thought, some of the recent announcements and the, type of workloads that customers are running, particularly in this COVID time, some machine related
Mm.
stuff, machine learning related stuff that is influencing all the research is
Yeah.
really very inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're not here to talk about machine learning today. We're going to talk message brokers. We're going to start off with a little bit of a level set. So I'm going to ask my lovely guests to give us a little bit of a background around message brokers. So a little an overview of what one is and why it's important, particularly in cloud application development. So, Rick, do you want to take that, or Nathan? If just as I asked, just answer. Answer. Don't wait.
Yeah, I think I'd take it just a little level higher in terms of thinking about what messaging is when you think about application integration. And so messaging is just broadly that ability to, connect microservices together anytime you need to decouple different parts of your application for various reasons. Messaging is a great approach to that. And then within that, we have message brokers as one of those options. So, we have our cloud native services with SQS and SNS for really simple APIs and nearly infinitely scalable capacity. But then we also have Amazon MQ offering message brokers where it's more of a discrete instance running an open source message broker to provide that messaging functionality to connect different systems together. Any further
Yeah.
thoughts, Mithin?
No, absolutely. I just want to say that messaging continues to be a very important component of large scale architectures, not only the more modern cloud native applications that are being built, but traditional enterprises have messaging connecting all different systems. So any day to day things that we take for granted there's messaging running behind the scenes. So really, in that sense, I think we're part of
Yeah.
a really major service.
Yep, cool. So it's a great way to start decoupling your application is by using messaging patterns and different messaging patterns depending on your use case. So is there any particular type of use case that you'd use, say, a message broker over, say, a something like SQS or even a managed Kafka stream? Would be any particular use cases that would be preferential?
The interesting thing that we find breaks up the decision point between Amazon MQ and SQS and SNS for customers tends to often be whether it's a new or an existing application. Amazon MQ's support of standard messaging protocols within the space makes it a perfect option for migrating an existing application that
Yeah. Have we got a bit of audio issues there? So I think we're having a few audio issues from Rick. So I think he's changed his audio source, so and we can hear it, which is even more disconcerting.
Maybe
We're live.
maybe I'll fill in
Nathan,
for.
can you take that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I just sort of wanted to add on to what Rick was mentioning about, the more cloud native applications that are using SQS and SNS. But in addition to the message brokers, some of the patterns that it specifically supports is using filtering, and routing. Traditionally, with message brokers, that whole pattern is very well supported, more so with some of the APIs that are built around it. For example, if customers are coming from traditional Java type of background where GMS is a very, very popular API that most of the message brokers support, it facilitates a lot of patterns where you're able to do topic queue chaining and apply filtering on top of it, doing virtual topics and basically be able to do durable subscriptions. Some of these patterns are very well supported and have been used in the industry for a long, long time. So I think message brokers are very important whenever customers have any need to support these type of patterns within their enterprise.
Cool. Yep. No. So that's so I think Rick's audio issues hopefully are fixed now. Sorry about that. Oh, I spoke too soon. So we'll just continue on, and hopefully we can fix Rick's audio issues as we go. So the next question is obviously, so we're talking about RabbitMQ and but I want to give it in context of, say, we already have an existing service with ActiveMQ. So can we talk about the contrasting ways you would use ActiveMQ over Rabbit and vice versa? What are the key differentiators and stuff like that? Could you give us some information about that?
Yeah, sure. So ActiveMQ, it was the first managed message broker that we launched. One of the key differentiators between ActiveMQ and RabbitMQ is that AMQP is a very widely adopted message protocol in the industry. And even though ActiveMQ does have support for, or for that matter, Amazon MQ supports AMQP 1.0 through ActiveMQ, but there is a huge industry, or rather industry segment or customer segment, which specifically relies on AMQP 091. And that was a constant feedback that we were getting from our customers that they want to, they love the overall managed service offering that we get through Amazon MQ. It's just that that protocol support is something that is really something they want, and in a managed service manner. So that's the reason we came up with managed RabbitMQ engine now. So with this launch, we are now able to support both segments of customers who, one, which are basically using messaging from traditional like JMS API and using AMQP 1.0 or the traditional open wire protocol. Plus, through ActiveMQ, we also give support for MQTT, Stomp, and WebSockets. And then with the launch of RabbitMQ, we are now providing support for the AMQP 091 as well. So I think that's probably one of the big differences, I would say.
Yeah, cool. I'm an old Java developer from way back, and I've been using RabbitMQ for some time, so I'm pretty excited by this service and the launch of it. But as well as maintaining the version and supplying developers with AMQP, an up-to-date AMQP version, what else do customers get with the managed version of RabbitMQ?
Yeah, I mean, with the managed RabbitMQ, one of the biggest hurdles or biggest challenges that customers have told us they generally face is maintaining the clusters. RabbitMQ clustering in general has been something that customers have to dedicate a lot of time and effort, and they really want to focus on their core business and not having to maintain these clusters, so that they can provide maximum durability and high availability. So with our managed RabbitMQ or Amazon MQ, we basically offer them two options, one being the single standalone broker, and then a 3-node cluster. And all this is pretty much like any of our other services is available to you in the matter of minutes. You simply go and provision a broker either through the console or through CloudFormation, whichever you choose to. And things, typically which would take maybe weeks for a customer to provision is available to you in a matter of minutes. Plus, the 3-node cluster option that we offer is deployed across 3 availability zones, and which gives them high availability. And also, we have an option to make a cluster private or a publicly exposed broker. So they have both the options in terms of their security requirements.
Cool. Well, I think we've talked enough about the service. Let's see it in action. Fingers crossed, Rick, we've got you back, and you can take us through a demo of what it's like to create a managed RabbitMQ service.
Yeah, hopefully audio issues resolved.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. One quick thing on the demo, and then we can. All right, let's go. Okay. Yeah. So just following up on what Within was saying, we can show how easy it is within the console. So just a few quick steps. First off, obviously you got to pick your broker engine. So selecting between Apache ActiveMQ and RabbitMQ. Next up for deployment mode. So single instance or cluster deployment. Cluster deployment spread across 3 AZs behind a load balancer. So you have a single endpoint for access. And then it's just a few really simple parameters. So you got to give your broker a name. So I'll just give my broker a name here, my first cluster. And then next up is instance selection. So a range of instance types based on the performance needs of your application. And then you have to give it a first user. So really key is that you only set up the first initial user through the console and the service, and then all future user management straight to the broker API. And then finally, if you need to, you can get into specifying a specific version. Right now, we support a single version, but we expect to be keeping up to date with new versions from the community. Integrated into CloudWatch logs, so we'll automatically copy the RabbitMQ logs there. And then you can also get into specifying whether it's a public or private broker. And then for private brokers, you specify whatever combination of VPCs and subnets you want, and we'll put a VPC endpoint in each. And finally, just maintenance, really quick ability to specify whether or not upgrades happen automatically, and then either having a specific specified maintenance window when we'll do that maintenance on the broker, or having us select when that maintenance happens for you. And that's it. Final step is just reviewing all that content. Super easy to then just click next and create your broker. So broker creation does take roughly 10 minutes. So I do have another one that I made earlier to show you a couple more details about the experience in the console. So if you click into that broker, I can show you. So you just get the basic broker details, shows you all the details about your broker. First and foremost, obviously, most importantly, is the endpoint. So that's how your applications, your producers and consumers will connect to the message broker. But a couple of the things you can do in edit. So you can get into the CloudWatch metrics for the broker, reboot it, delete it, or indeed edit it as well. And then for editing, you could upgrade or change different versions. You can scale up to a larger or smaller instance, and then change other basic settings as well. And then you have the choice to either schedule those modifications for a future maintenance window or for restarting immediately. Next, just to pop into the RabbitMQ web console. So the standard web console that our customers love about RabbitMQ is still available to them, and a couple key things that they'll see inside there. So there's a monitoring user that exists for us to get the data to CloudWatch, and then you can add additional users as you want within the console there. There's also a really key policy around HA. So we always ensure that the HA mode is set to all and the sync mode to automatic. And what that means for RabbitMQ broker is that we'll ensure there's for a clustered broker that there's replication to all 3 nodes within the cluster all times. So it just helps us with the management and ensuring durability and availability. Next up, there's a really fun demo site called Try RabbitMQ. And it lets you play around with different things to sort of understand how RabbitMQ brokers work. And so if I drag out a producer, an exchange, a queue, and a consumer, we can play around with a bit to just help visualize how the message brokers work. And so I can wire those things together, and a producer talking through to an exchange to a queue. Just those basic building elements of a RabbitMQ broker. So the exchanges and the queues really form the core of how a RabbitMQ broker works and how you can route and play with messages within them. So you can see without a consumer connected, those messages build up in a queue. But if I go ahead and connect the consumer, they get drained and received. So where this site is super fun is actually, though, to sort of dig into some of the more complex things you can do with exchanges and queues. In terms of routing and different kinds of topologies for messaging and connecting applications. So if I pop over to another demo I set up earlier, I have an example here with a producer going to an exchange with 4 queues, and we can look at the different exchange types. So if I set that to a different type of exchange, we can see how those works within a Rabbit broker. So a fan node exchange sends a copy of the messages to all the queues. So in this case, where I've got 4 queues connected to a exchange, as I start sending those messages in, you can really visually see, it's going to get a copy of those to all 4 queues. And then I could do parallel processing off of, that message data across all those 4 queues. But if I change it to another type of exchange, so if I look at a topic exchange, I can do some really fun stuff with binding keys. So that's the way in which you've attached the queues to the exchange and setting up routing keys to have different routing keys determine where messages are duplicated and where they get sent. So in the example here, it's sort of a basic log message security type classification, where if I set a routing key called general.medium, you can see that message gets sent to the everything queue as well as a general messages queue. But if I change that over to, say, a general critical routing key, that message is now replicated 3 times. So it ends up in an all messages queue, a general messages queue, and the critical queue. And then just, similarly, if I change that over to a security.critical kind of routing key, it obeys those bindings and then sends 3 copies to each of those 3 queues. So really powerful feature in terms of how RabbitMQ brokers work. They're this collection of exchanges and queues that let you implement these really interesting messaging topologies to distribute data between the microservices or the sub-services of your application and let you do some really cool stuff. So that was probably way too fast, but hopefully kind of cool.
Cool demo, Rick. Thanks for sharing. I think I've got a few questions on the demo itself. Mm-hmm. And these are the questions that developers ask me all the time when we release new services. So the first one is always, so you've showed us the console experience. What about CloudFormation support?
So yeah, definitely full CloudFormation right from day one. We hear that the same from developers as well. So we always make sure to keep that in line.
Yep.
And then just all the other ways you'd hope to interact with an AWS service. You can do those things for creating, deleting, updating brokers.
Yep. Awesome. The second question they always ask me, so it's RabbitMQ is an open source project. What are we doing with the community to help them on their journey?
We're really excited to engage more and more with that community, and participate actively in it. As we've just launched into it now, we'll be starting up more of those activities formally. But it's something we see really important for Amazon MQ as a service. Historically, we've engaged well with the ActiveMQ community, and we really look forward to doing that as well with the RabbitMQ community to both feedback sort of what we learn from being a large scale manager of a lot of brokers, and just sort of participating to keep making each engine better and better.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. And then the third question that developers always ask me is, well, how do I use this thing? So that leads us into our second demo. So Mithun is going to take us through technical and demo gods willing through how to connect to the endpoint. Mithun, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I'll just play the demo. So this is, the RabbitMQ web console. So when you provision the broker, just like how Eric had explained, you will get access to this web console where you can actually go and see the different, queues and exchanges that are created as part of your RabbitMQ. Now, in this particular screen, I'm showing a sample program that I created, to send and receive messages. So right now we're going through the sender code. It's in Python using the Pika library. So Pika is one of the very popular libraries through which you can interact with RabbitMQ. So as you can see, it's basically setting up connection. We create specify the exchange, and then there's a simple API call to do the basic publish. This is the receiver part of the code. So this is where we again the connecting to the broker. That part pretty much is the same as that you have in your sender. The one thing that you need to keep in mind here is that you need to have a queue definition as well. So you're basically setting up a queue on which the consumer is actually able to receive the messages. The messages are sent onto an exchange by the sender. So like you can see here that when I started sending the messages, it had the exchange in there. So now when you go through the console, you'll see that it created a demo exchange. So this is an exchange is like the basic entity on which message senders will send their messages, from which they are routed to queues, from which an actual consumer can consume the messages. So this was a 3-node cluster, so it showed you the 3 different cluster nodes that are part of it. Now I'm launching the receiver now, so you can see that it starts getting the messages, and then this is the queue that I created as part of that particular receiver client. And if you go to the demo exchange, this is where it shows that there was a routing based on that routing key on which that queue is connected. Now in the third window here, I'm launching another receiver. This time the queue is different, but it's still connected to the same exchange with the same binding key, which is the routing key. So you see the second queue getting created here. And if we look at the exchange, it now has 2 queues that are bound to the same exchange using the same, the routing key. So both the consumers are actually getting the same messages being delivered on 2 different queues. And in fact, right now I'm just stopping the 2 consumers, and then we'll go and look at that the actual queues are getting the messages still there. They will be sitting in the queue from which a consumer can consume them. So you can see that the messages are now being written onto the queue. The same thing for the second queue as well. So it gives you that durable storage on which the messages are available even if the consumer is down. Now I go ahead and basically stop the producer as well, and you can see that it still shows that the exchange and the queues are still basically the routing is still available.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So in a nutshell, Mithun, as a developer, I can use my existing code, my existing libraries with a managed RabbitMQ, and what would things I would have to add to that code to make it work?
Not much actually. All that you need to do is basically, if you already have a RabbitMQ client, we offer like for the 3-node cluster as well. There is just a single endpoint that we provide through which you will be connecting to the cluster. We only support a TLS endpoint, so you just need to make sure that you are connecting to that. Other than that, it's pretty much the whole idea of the managed message broker is that we can port your existing code, with minimal changes.
Cool, awesome. And they've just got time for one question, and I'm interested in around best practices that you folks would recommend people who are spinning up the cluster. How would they go about maintaining it? What would you give them advice? A couple of tips.
Sure. Rick, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, we have some great best practices content within the Amazon MQ documentation to check out. I mean, the general, the general one we live by often is a happy broker is an empty broker. The point is to decouple thing and keep queues short and healthy. As a managed service, we take over a lot of the rest of the maintenance in terms of the patching and updating and everything during maintenance windows and doing that in the way to minimize impact. So we go to great lengths to make that part of it easy for you. But in terms of a healthy broker, just looking at the performance of the broker and how it's operating.
And what about, so we're running out of time, unfortunately, gents, which is a shame. I could probably talk about this for a while. What about what's next? What can you share about the future for this service, if you can, whatever you can?
I mean, we're super excited to be able to give RabbitMQ customers an ability to migrate directly and use the broker that they love, and we're going to want to stay up to date with the latest features from the community and things they're releasing and integrating it into the managed service to work really well. So lots of support from us will come along, just staying up to date with the versions and staying up to date with the feature set from the community and making sure that Rabbit folks have exactly the experience they want with a RabbitMQ broker.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, we're just running out of time, so I'll thank my guests, Rick and Mithun. Thanks, folks. Thanks, gents, for joining me today. I've learned a lot about the Amazon managed RabbitMQ service, and thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge with us.
Sure.
Thank you. This was really exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.